Welcome to another episode of the Mind's Eye with Mike Larry. As you guys already know, this is your host, Mike Larry. This concludes the mini series about relationship and dating. Stay tuned. They can never be anything close to what we need them to be in our mate because they're not where we are right now. We want where we are right now before.
Right, but nobody's saying that they aren't ever going to get there, and because they're not there now, then they're not a quality person. I'm saying, God needs to tell me specifically that this person is who He has for me, because God is not telling all of us to lead everybody to Christ. Some people don't want to come to Christ. You can't force people to
I
come to
agree.
Christ if they don't want to.
I agree.
So it doesn't have to be in the person I want to date has to lead that person. Why can't they get a spiritual mentor? They can get a Christian friend, a Christian mentor, or something like that. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
through a relationship. And we can be friends. And then once it gets to a point where I feel like God has said, yes, this person is your mate, or this person is in a position where they can be your mate, then that's something different. But if they were just walking in, everybody, that story you told about people being not a believer and then turning into a pastor, that's not everybody. And you don't know what the future is going to hold for that person. You don't know if they're actually going to grow in the word and grow in a relationship with God. So I'm not even going to go down that road of, like Will was saying, trying to drag somebody along if they're not even fully committed
So
to
let me
knowing about God for themselves.
let me ask you this. So what's the difference from a man telling you that he believes in God, he goes to church and goes to church with you every Sunday, but he just putting on to get with you? What's really the difference?
After
The
a
It's
while,
easy
you're
to
gonna
tell the
see that
difference.
fruit.
It's easy to
There,
tell
After
the
there's
a
no
difference.
while.
fruit. I'm
After a
gonna.
while,
There
right?
you go. Fruit. Good word.
After a while. So, but that's also time wasted. So if you're gonna waste, like, I, all I'm saying is just be open minded.
Mm.
That's all I'm saying. I would say
I'm
everything.
I'm not against it. I'm just saying that I need to know for sure that this is what God is telling this. If that's my assignment to be in a relationship with that person and lead them to Christ, then God needs to tell me that's my assignment. Otherwise, I'm just wasting my time in hopes that this man comes to the Lord.
I
And
agree with you.
it's a slippery slope
It
because
is.
there's so many feelings and like you were talking about the chemistry and all the butterflies and all of that that happens in a dating relationship, and then to kind of intermingle that with such a critical point in somebody's life, that that can be just a not great recipe. I can just speak experientially. Like there were years before God let me date. And I prayed a prayer and God like really answered it. I was like, God, don't send me, anybody until like I'm ready and I'm solid within my relationship with you. Because
Ooh,
I
why'd
just
you pray
need to
that?
focus on, I know, right? And after a couple
Ooh.
years, I was like, well, God, am I cute? Because ain't nobody asked me for
God
Am I
be
money or
cute?
blocking.
nothing.
Okay.
Like I
God be
was
full on
just
blocking.
Be
Ooh.
careful. They
right.
said be careful what you pray for.
I said,
Like,
"Ooh, God, all right."
I was like, God, I
He
really mean it
listens
like
and he
all like
answers.
that though. I was like, just like, but those years that I spent like really discovering me and discovering God, and because I didn't grow up in church. So there was a lot of time and I needed to make up for. And so I can't experientially just me, I can't imagine trying to do that while I'm also trying to build this relationship with somebody. Just mixing the two, like it would have been tough because I would have leaned more into what my flesh wanted in the relationship versus leaning into me getting to know God, right? And it just being me and Jesus. So
Mhm.
I think that, like, not saying that that's impossible and that can't happen, but I think it's a slippery slope. And then the other thing I wanted to say too, and going back to what Will was saying about from a woman's perspective, like we're looking for the man to be the spiritual leader, right? And so it's almost like, you know, if he doesn't know God and he is not at church and doesn't he's then it's like us giving like our car keys to somebody that doesn't have a driver's license and like, okay, drive me now. This dude he ain't got no license. Where he gonna take me? You know what I mean? Are we
And
gonna
he could get a driver's license, but you're gonna give him the keys now before he gets it?
right, exactly. So it just, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Mike,
Maybe in
I-
that situation you might just need to be still until he get his license, and then y'all can go.
Take the bus.
Hey, y'all still moving forward.
Mike,
Oh,
I'm
man.
tending to trend along the logic that you have, right? I hear all of the reasons that Melinda, Nakia, and Will have said, but at the core of things is love, right? And Jesus didn't just leave people by the wayside, right? When they didn't necessarily comport to all of the things. In fact, some of the best Bible characters have many, many, many flaws. And so when you talked about previously the idea of it being friction or chemistry, right? The friction, you really tapped into my nerdness of it all, right? The friction, that's going to happen, right? In terms of attraction and the like. The chemistry comes when you start adding ingredients, right? You add, niacin and you add oxygen, right? And then that is where the chemistry comes from. And so I feel like just to count somebody out of a relationship, because, and I say to count a man out of a relationship with me, knowing that I know that there's a purpose on my life to bring people closer to Jesus. I can't do that. I can't do it. I just don't have the level of, I'm getting back to the idea of judging people, right? Because I've seen what you said, where I've seen people just by a little bit of push towards Jesus. All they needed was that push because they've been in the church and having been part of that team and it takes them to a new trajectory. But I've also seen the opposite side of where I've had really great friends who have, they went on tours with people, and right, their husband was part of that and did some really devastating, horrible things, and that was a follower. So I just feel like God is going to bring me to what is right, and I don't want to judge just because and just say you're out of the list because you don't follow the way I follow, or you don't believe the way I believe, or not ideally the way where I want to be. Right? Because I think also that is up high in the sky. I think ideally I want you to lead me, but there are going to be times where I have to push you to lead. That's any relationship.
Right.
Sometimes I have to make that balance. And so I'm trending more with your commentary of being more open-minded, not to say that everyone on the call is not open-minded, but like that's just where I sit. And people who know me know that I'm that type of optimistic, very, heart on my sleeve type of person. That's who I am. And so I can hear what you're saying. And I think part of that also, like I said, is based in seeing followers get together, or seemingly followers, and one of them being more of a follower than the other, and the other one was just putting on airs, right? And so I feel like that's also a place of uncertainty, right? It's like, here's this follower, and I thought you were following and all the things, but you back in the back room with Miss Betty and Barbara and Jane and Carrie, right, doing what you want to do, and now, right, but I thought you were a follower, and other people thought you were a follower. And so now I might have had those same red flags about you, but I didn't get to the chemistry of it all. It was all about the friction in the trending of being a Christian, right? Not friction in the trending of the worldly components of it, right? Because that can happen too. And so I want to find what that balance is. And I feel like if I felt strongly after having those hard, tough conversations in the beginning, and you said to me, well, I went to church, but I was in this Baptist church and they made me feel bad because, sorry about the light, they made me feel bad because, right, I had a child out of wedlock. That's going to, pull on my heartstrings. So I haven't been back, but I might read the Bible here and there. I might well, you know what? Come to church with me, right? Let's see if we can get there, because I'm just dating you anyway. I'm not with you. I'm not committing anything completely to you. Let's see what happens. And then what happens could be that you might be the next pastor of our church, or you might go off and be like, what's his name? That is our friend. And now you're an intern down at Elevation, and we're off and swept away like him and Chelsea. I just feel like there's opportunity there, and God won't bring it to us if he's not going to bring us through it. So
Mm.
I hear that's what you're trying to say. At least that's how
Yeah.
it's resonating and landing on my heart. But I also hear Melinda and Nakia, like, we've done
Yeah.
a lot of work,
For sure.
right? Like, and I want somebody who can match that work, and I'm not willing to settle. I hear that part too, because that's what I just said
Mhm.
about my treasure, right? So that is the same motivation and the same logic, but I also feel like, yeah, I gotta give that just from where I am. I gotta give because I know I'm not perfect. And somebody might say the same thing about me, like, Letitia, when was the last time you read your Bible? And if I say 3 days ago, then he gonna walk out the door, right? No, I need a wife that needs blah, 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 right? She getting up in the morning and praising the Lord, and before she puts her head on the pillow, she praising the Lord. And I do it all day long, but it
That's a
looks
good
different
point.
to somebody else.
But he knows why he needs that, right? Because he knows his purpose, he knows his call, he knows what the Lord is calling him to do. So he knows why he needs that wife or that woman that reads the Bible 6 times a day, right? Because he's sure enough in himself and what God has called him to do that he knows that this is what he needs, because maybe that's what God told him that he needs, and he's waiting for that thing that God promised him, right?
Well, see,
I want to just defend, Will and myself and Melinda.
Why do you have to defend yourself? You
don't say the
No,
word
because
defend. That's
Mike
not
spoke
hard.
you
a
and
The
lot.
word
Mike
defend is
are
hard.
making it seem like
No,
We're not coming
You are-
strong
you
now.
have to defend.
because you and Mike are making it seem like what we are saying is
No.
we are better
I'm
than
just-
someone. No, listen,
No,
It is
No.
coming off like that a little bit.
No, all I want to say is
we
that all I'm saying is have an open mind. Like, I understand, I want what you guys want too. I do. But I'm not closed-minded in the possibility of receiving it a different way. That's it. It could very well be somebody that's seeking God but don't have direction. And I can't, as a man, it may come off a little different because I'm supposed to be the leader anyways. But I can see from a woman's perspective, like, looking for a man that, like, checks off all the boxes and, like, just had a bad experience with the religion of Christianity, if you will, and not understanding being a follower of Christ, because to me they're different. And so understanding that component, it takes a new turn for me, and I think for that female, because she might be used to a lot of dope boys or guys that's way far from God or way far from even the reality of being a good woman to her, or whatever the case may be. But then she got a guy that's curious, but he's not where she's at. Curiosity, it can be enough in a lot of situations. That means you're on the right track. You just got to know what direction to go in, and somebody needs to lead you in which direction to go in. And sometimes it's okay to be a woman. My old pastor, Pastor Andy Thompson, he was talking about how, like, it's about the woman should surrender to the man is the leader, blah blah blah. He said, but what he found though is that there's times he's learned to surrender to her because there's things that she does better than he does.
absolutely.
And so with that being said, it's like that's the compatibility and companionship and partnership. Like, as a man, if I just lead us to wherever by myself, then I can lead any woman wherever by myself. But what are you bringing to me as a woman to where I'm leading you separately or differently than I'm gonna lead any other woman? What makes it any different than any other woman? If I'm always just leading, and I'm a leader, but I need a little guidance. Show me, like, give me you know what, baby? I think, like, if you tweak it a little bit, then boom, we can go left. I was like, you know what? I was thinking about going left anyways. Let's just go left. I found a path that way anyways. I'm still leading, but you still participating in my leadership. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I think that, like, even early in the stage, there's women that can poke men enough to get them right on the right track. They ride on a little gravel right by the railroad track, a little gravel, but they just need a little boost from a woman to put them on the railroad track. Don't the Bible say a man who finds a good woman finds a good thing?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
But-
he's blessed. People always leave that last part out. It says he's blessed.
What are you saying?
A man that finds a good thing, and he's blessed.
And
Yeah.
some versions say in favor with the Lord, but yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or blessed, exactly.
That's the
I
same.
want to address.
the
I
same
do want to
What you
address the idea that you felt the need to defend. Mike was on here by himself, talking all that he was talking with no defense whatsoever. I just agree with his viewpoint. It doesn't mean that I said very clearly that it doesn't mean that I disagree with your viewpoint, because
No, and I'm
you're
not
using
saying
the
that
same
you did.
using the same logic is the logic that you use about dating a man who is a follower, is the same logic that I'm saying about a treasure box earlier on in the conversation. So I see your logic and I match your logic, and I think that that is absolutely correct, and that is for you, right? And that's, I think, what I said. But I tend to trend along with Mike's perspective, and felt like I should jump in to say that because Mike was out here on an island unto himself, kind of with the three of you, right?
He
And so
was.
I do tend to think in the same way that he does, because I feel like I can't, I'm walking that balance of trying to be Christ-like and also use discernment. And so in the Christ-like of it, Christ didn't push people away because he thought that they didn't fit a certain box.
You
That's what I'm
you preaching
defending.
right now.
No, that's what I'm defending, because when you and Mike are talking about this, you are very much intermingling like the decision that we are making to choose someone that is like, on an equal playing field to a certain level as far as where we stand with our walk in Christ, which is okay. And you're intermingling that with, if we don't choose that and we choose somebody and we choose to date somebody that's not a Christian, or choose to date somebody that's not a Christian, we don't choose to date somebody that, may need a little nudge or whatever, that we're judging them and that we think we're perfect, and that, some of the other things that you guys, and that's not it. Us making a choice as far as who we want to be with for the rest of our lives and who we don't, does not mean that who we don't choose, we are judging them. That's not it.
But that's not what we said. We never said that that's what you're doing. What was said was for us, and maybe I'm gonna say for Letitia. For Letitia, my judgment is for me, just like and that's what I was saying. Where I'm at,
if you choose not to date somebody, are you judging them?
No, in some senses, yes, actually, if I'm saying it outright, right? Yes, you are judging, you are making a judgment about who they are and what their character is and how that builds into the value of your life. Yes, you are making a judgment. But what I was saying from where I sit is I want my walk with Christ, not Nakia's walk, not Melinda's walk. That's why I said that is for you, right? Not where I sit. I want to be more Christ-like, and in my being more Christ-like, my discernment is different, right? What?
Is the way you're wording it, because you're saying if we're not doing that, then we're not Christ.
But I never said that. That's what that's how you're interpreting what I'm saying. What I'm saying is for me, if I want to be more Christ-like, for me, your walk with Christ is different than my walk with Christ. If you want to be more Christ-like and you feel like very much where Will came from, very much where he came from, Will said, my Bible tells me several things of what I need to do. That's his interpretation of the Bible, how the Lord is revealing it to him, how he's seeing it through his eyes. When I read the Bible, I read and he interprets, the Lord gives me another view of what it should be. So my walk with Christ and wanting to be more Christ-like is to be less judgmental, because I have been judgmental. That comes from my experience. That's not a reflection on Nakia. That's not a reflection on Melinda. That's not a reflection on Will. That's not a reflection on Pastor Preston or Pastor Stephen, right? Their walk is different than my walk, and what they read and interpret is different than what I read and interpret, because I have a different path that I'm on. And that's what I was saying. I can see where you're coming from, Mike, because I wear my heart on my sleeve for everything. That doesn't mean that you don't wear your heart on your sleeve. That would be a falsehood, Nakia. If I said Nakia doesn't wear her heart on her sleeve, you got FOMO more than anybody I've ever known because of the heart that is on your sleeve. But that's for me, where I sit. I don't ever want what pulled the string the hardest was the church hurt that Mike was talking about. That there are men, and I know for a fact, I know plenty of men who just turn their back because of the religion. So for me to say, you're not following like I am, and that's why I asked the questions I asked. He said, you can have a believer, but they're not a follower. If I meet a believer and he's been hurt by the church and I have an opportunity to show you Elevation is better or whatever church that I'm in, because we don't comport to all these traditions and all the things, right? And you're like, oh, well, we could just sit here and read this Bible. We could do these studies. We can, right? Then yes, and we already have that chemistry. Then I want to explore that. I don't want to just cut you off because, and so when he said have an open mind, I want to just cut you off because you don't fit in the box of what I thought I needed. I want to be, like he said, open-minded to it, because again, that's what I feel like God is speaking to me in this moment right now, is that you need to be open-minded. You don't need to judge, because like you said, the other man that I talked about, the other fictional man who would turn me away because I'm not in my Bible enough, because he knows what he needs. That's his walk. And I'm not, maybe he doesn't think I'm good enough for him. But I feel like I'm a follower. I don't feel like I'm a believer. But in his mind, he thought that I was a believer in this fictional hypothetical situation. And that's fine, because then maybe our chemistry wasn't what it was, what I thought it was. And we're not supposed to take that journey together. But I don't want to be that person that does that to someone else if God has not spoken to me, that's what it is. What I feel God speaking to me is that I need to have an open mind, because I know what judgment and I know what church hurt feels like. And so I don't want to engage in that and give somebody else that option. Now, I say all that saying that I'm not dating, right? So this is all hypothetical, right? Because I'm not dating anyone right now. And I'm probably going to be in that space for probably a couple more years. But I hear what he was saying, and that's what tugged on my heart. It was not a reflection or anything towards you. I feel like the both of you are very strong-willed and understand what you want and how you want it. But that doesn't mean that what he was saying is not, I'm taking both in. Let me say that. I'm taking both pieces of information in.
That Mike was wrong. I'm just saying, why I got to date him immediately? Why can't I wait and see?
Give him some time.
I think for me,
That was the original question. If he wasn't a Christian and he didn't go to church, that was the original question.
No, he said believer and
so
nut.
that's why I said. That's why I clarified between believer and follower, because you could be a believer, like, which means you believe in God. You just don't go to church. You know what I mean? You don't go to church. You don't listen to sermons. You just know that God exists. And then you may tell me about an experience or a situation that happened where it's like, God wouldn't have it this way. If this is supposed to be how good God is supposed to be, he wouldn't do it this way. Because I remember growing up, man, they used to say women had to wear skirts in church. I didn't read that scripture one time. Like, you know what I'm saying? So think about people that may not be as strong-minded to like seek things for themselves. And they have, going to church and church, after that. Like, as a matter of fact, I play ball on Sundays with my guys. And one of my other guys and I were talking about, we're going to church, on Sunday. So we got to play later in the afternoon now, starting soon. We're talking about going back in June. And one of the other guys was like, so why do y'all go to church? What's this whole thing about church? He was like, I believe in God, but, I don't really care to go to church. I was like, church, I told him, I said, church, man, for me, it's like the fellowship. It's like to be around like believers and to be around people that I can fellowship with, that I can gain perspective from or learn from, that I wouldn't get outside of going to church or whatever. Right. And so for this guy that believes in God, like, from what y'all saying, y'all are canceling him out, but he asking me questions.
No.
That's not what we're saying.
You ain't about to date him, Mike.
Yeah.
You ain't trying to date him. You just trying to take the brother to church, and that's
and play ball.
I know I'm not, but I'm just saying, if I was a female and the guy was an attractive guy and the guy was like vibing with chemistry, and then that conversation came up on the second date and he told you that, you would shut him out then? Is what I'm getting at.
I would invite him to church first, and then I would let him know that we could be friends.
So why does it have to be a relationship? Why can't we
thank you, Melinda.
That's not, I'm not saying it
where are you going?
Yeah.
What he said to the Lord first. I don't get it.
I'm not saying it has to be a relationship, but just like church, isn't church him having a job, him, being a provider, him being handsome, him having chemistry, are all categories that you're looking for, right?
Okay, can I jump in here for just a second? I've been quiet for like 20 minutes. So what you're talking about, Mike, are criteria. And the reason this conversation has got so contentious is because criteria is subjective. And so Letitia, like what you were talking about, because of your past experiences, when the time comes, when you decide to step into dating, your criteria may be different than what Nikia's is or mine is or Melinda is. I don't think there's a right answer here. And I think the further you try to persuade people to shift their criteria because of whether they're a believer or this or that, the third, it just kind of goes down a rabbit hole. And I don't think similarly, you can judge people if they say, this is my dating criteria, and it doesn't mean that I don't hang out with people who don't meet that criteria. You know what I mean? Like I could say, this is the 6 things that at this stage, at this age, at this moment in my life, I want to find in this person. Doesn't mean that I judge the people that don't meet that criteria. I'm saying if I want to buy this, it needs to have this 6 criteria. Like I invest in real estate. So I know I want this many bedrooms. I want this location. It needs to be in this price range. I need this profit margin. It doesn't mean someone else can look at it and it doesn't meet my criteria. Someone else can look at it and say, this is great. It doesn't make it bad. It means it doesn't meet my criteria. It's okay. It's still a value. It just doesn't meet criteria, and everyone's criteria is different, and it's okay. And we can't judge because criteria are different.
And I 1,000% agree with you. All I'm saying is that this other property might have less bedrooms, less baths, but you might be able to make more money off of it. That's the end goal.
Somebody else.
Huh?
But here's the thing. If we go real estate, some people may be willing to invest more than others. Some people may say, I'm gonna take this shabby property and put 50,000. It's gonna be great. And the other people may say, I can't invest a whole lot. I need this thing to be ready to go. And I think that's what you're seeing with dating.
And I 100% agree. Well, all I'm saying is, all I'm saying is that all of what you guys are saying isn't wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong at all.
Yeah, I don't think there's a wrong here.
Yeah, but what I'm also saying is just be open-minded to both possibilities. That's it. The possibility of finding someone equally spiritually yoked and finding someone also that's on the fence about God based on past experiences. Because we've all been there. I would say, like, you know, we've all had our moments, you know, spiritually. I mean, like, God, where you at? What you doing, man? Where you at? Like, you know, we've had our moments. So, like, some of us are stronger than others in those moments. So sometimes it's up to us to steer people in the right direction, and that person could end up being more anointed than we are. Like, it just, all I'm saying is, again, just be open-minded to the possibility of receiving good, no matter what form it comes in. They say God works in mysterious ways, right? So you can't say God works in mysterious ways subjected to these things over here, but he can't bring you what you might see as a heathen and not be the best thing that ever happened to you spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. But carry on.
Now, I was just going to add, well, to your points about where the conversation got a little contentious. It is clear that we all did not understand the terminologies of things that were being said, because, and that's where I think some of this kind of went a little bit left, right? There was a conversation about someone not being a Christian. There was a conversation about a believer versus a follower. And then we also had conversation about dating, and dating early on, we said was not a relationship that, and I want to say, not necessarily all of us comported to that, but that was part of the discussion, that dating was not necessarily a relationship. And so when the question is asked about, would you date that person? You're getting to know that person, right? And you're giving them the opportunity to grow. That doesn't necessarily mean that you were going to be in a relationship with said person. And a non-Christian, right? I find that would be more challenging than being with someone who is a believer, right? And I'm dating them, getting to know them, and also bringing them towards Christ, as opposed to a follower of Christ, right? And that's where I thought the conversation was. So if you bring that all into totality, making sure that we had a clear understanding of each of the terminologies and a clear understanding of what the question was, which is why I was asking questions about the question, was because, right, there's the anticipation of what will this lead to if we don't have a firm understanding of what is the question being asked, and if dating means a relationship, or does dating mean that I'm just getting to know you and other people, right? So if dating is just I'm getting to know you and other people, which is what landed on my heart, then why not? Why can't I date you if you are, now I can't, it's gonna be hard to date you as a Christian. I'm gonna just be full on outright. If you're a non-Christian, that's hard. That's just, I don't know that I can do that. However, if you are a non-believer or you are a believer and you just aren't following God right now, I think in a dating realm that's something that can happen, and I can have an open mind to that. So if that was the question, then I want to just say that.
Well, that concludes this series about relationships and dating.
That does not mean we're not going to ever talk about relationships and dating again. There's so much that you can unpack from different types of relationships, experiences, and what have you. But that's all for now. Stay tuned. There's more content coming.